welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this evening, or this morning, or this afternoon, or whenever you happen to listen, because after all, it is your podcast. Now, later last year, which was only a month ago, we had a gentleman by the name of John D Clair on to talk about his Kickstarter game Downfall. And that has gone and passed, and now he has back again because I don't know why he's coming back on. I must have said something nice at least once or twice, but he's now back on to talk about a couple of projects that he's going to have coming up in the next couple of months. So, hello, John.
Hey, thanks for having me back
on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's good. It's good. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. So Downfall funded, which was good. But one of the things that you mentioned at the time when we were talking was your next project, which was going to be Edge of Darkness. Which what you said at the time was it was going to be kind of like it had elements of the same mechanics as Mystic Vale, and but then some. So I'm intrigued to know about that. You also in the green room mentioned to me about Space Base as well. So we're going to have a little chat about that as well. But I guess we better make everybody aware that the reason that we do this is because there's quite simply not enough podcasts out there about board games. And the second reason that we're doing this is because we like to speak to creators about their up and coming projects. And as I say, John's been on before. Check out the episode before. But John's coming back again to fill us in about the next exciting projects that he's got coming on. So if we let's start with Edge of Darkness. How long has that been in development now?
Yeah, so thanks for that introduction. Edge of Darkness has been in various stages of work since the initial idea I had back in fall of 2013. So rolling all the way back to fall of 2013, I think it was like September actually, is when I initially had the idea for card crafting. So Mystic Vale came out in 2016, but it wasn't the first game I designed using the card crafting system. That was actually Edge of Darkness.
Yeah.
Or it really even wasn't Edge of Darkness. It was a bunch of bad games I attempted to design using the system before finally ending up with a good game that was Edge of Darkness, right? So in September, I guess around then of 2013, I had the idea that combining, or specifically that using card sleeves as a actually essential piece of a game, it was never something I'd seen before in a game. And then if there were to be a game that required the use of card sleeves, what might that look like? From there, a few game designs I tried. They were okay at best. And along that process, I had the idea of combining the card sleeves with transparent cards. So the first actual iteration of a card crafting game for me didn't involve transparent cards. It was just card sleeves with special insignias on the front. And actually it was a weird deck builder type of game where everyone was sort of playing out of one group deck. So we were all group deck building sort of one deck. But the deck would actually sort of pass around the table, so different people it would all be one communal set of cards. And whenever you bought a new card to add to that sort of communal set of cards that we were building, you would slot the new card you bought into a card sleeve, which would then indicate on it your insignia, your color, on the front side, but the back side of all the card sleeves was the same. So when someone drew a card, it would either be a neutral card or be a card that some other player owned. Right, and then to use other people's cards, you'd have to pay them. So that was a really cool idea, and I like that idea a lot. the game, I only got so far with that game idea, because then I had the idea that, wait, if I combine transparent cards with card sleeves, so that you can put multiple things into a single sleeve and actually morph the card as you play, instead of just, mark who owns it, that's actually really cool, right? So then I actually kept the idea of sort of a shared deck building, which is one of the mechanics in Edge of Darkness, but moved on to the idea of the core system of the game not being buying new cards, but modifying existing cards.
Is it frustrating when you've got an idea for a game or a really good mechanic for the game, but it doesn't quite kind of develop into a fully fledged game, and you're left with a really, really cool idea that you have to wait until its time kind of comes?
There's occasions when that happens. Yeah, this was one where I knew the idea was good, and along the process of trying to make a game using that system, I came up with another idea that I thought was even better using that system. Right, so I never really put in the time to the original game design that I was working on to make it into a good game, because shortly after getting it to the table and playtesting a handful of times, I then realized, oh wait, there's actually this whole other design space I could actually go into, which would be even more interesting. But there have been games where I was like, ooh, this sounds like a really cool idea. Let me turn this into a prototype, and then get it to the playtest table, and then it really just doesn't work. Even though there's a part of it that I really like, I wasn't able to put it in a game system that I liked. And sometimes I'll then try that mechanic in different game systems, or give up and move on to the next idea I've had. Yeah,
it must be like a lot of the creative industries. If you've got a good story and you've got a good kind of central theme, and then you've got a really, really good start for a film, and then you don't know how to end the film, or you don't know how to end this TV series. I think that's maybe what happened with something like Lost, is they had like a really, really good central kind of story, and then they went, oh no, we're getting near the end, what do we do? And spoilers for Lost, even though it's because I better, because you know what the internet's like. There'll be some guy, I'm just working my way through it. You go, oh, I don't know, everybody's dead. And that's how they kind of get around it. So obviously Mystic Vale came out and is still, it's highly regarded. There's a lot of love that goes on to Mystic Vale, and just, even the nature of the mechanics and the card crafting side of things goes on. Did it then make you kind of put everything kind of back on hold then? Did you kind of let Mystic Vale ride its own wave and then say, okay, I'm going to did you feel kind of forced to wait a while before you, you decided to, I guess, kind of pick up Edge of Darkness again?
Yeah, so interestingly, Edge of Darkness, I sort of completed. I got to a point where I was happy with it, happy enough to pitch to publishers, and self-publishing was never a route that I was considering going down with this game. So my plan was to pitch it to publishers, and I got it to a point that I really liked, or liked enough, and pitched it to a number of publishers. AEG was interested. They ended up being the one that got the game. And at that point, I hadn't even started working on Mystic Vale, but I had ideas for other ways to take the core system of card crafting. There's a lot of design space there, and AEG was specifically interested in following up Edge of Darkness with a lighter, more accessible sort of gateway style game. So I said, well, let me see what I can do. I'll work on a design sort of in that vein, right? And Mystic Vale just came together really quickly, actually, from there. I was inspired by, obviously it has elements of Dominion as a deck builder, right, and other deck builders. But I was specifically inspired by a game called Design Town, which had the sort of push your luck, sort of blackjack style hand draw. And I sort of fused the two, and it worked really well in Mystic Vale. So that actually came together so fast that AEG decided they would do Mystic Vale first. and hold off on Edge of Darkness till later. And yeah, there was about a year where I was working on Mystic Vale and other designs, and I really didn't work on Edge of Darkness for probably about a 9 to 12 month period or so, from 2015 when I first started working on Mystic Vale till maybe around when Mystic Vale released in 2016. And then I went back to the design table with Edge of Darkness and started refining some things. I made a few changes that improved the game. You know, there's an advantage to having a game sitting on a shelf for a while, because when you come back to it, you come back with fresh eyes, right? And there's, you know, the issues that you sort of stopped noticing because you were just playing the game so much in the past, you then notice as almost not really a new player to the game, but more like that. So I made some changes that improved it after that period, and made more content for it and stuff like that.
Okay. So it kind of, in many ways, you having to almost take a little bit of a break from it is ultimately kind of you're more happier with the way Edge of Darkness is now than when you had left it on the shelf for Mystic Vale. Yeah,
I mean, the waiting is, you know, it's always exciting when a game starts coming together, and then ultimately I can hold the final product in my hands, right? But the fact that it got delayed is going to mean it's a better product and a better game in the end. So it's a good thing.
Okay. As a quick aside, I guess, is there did you get anything nice for Christmas? Since we talked.
So the one game
did you spoil yourself?
No, I didn't spoil myself. Did you say darn it?
I just thought you would have, I thought you'd do what it pushed the boat out. There was, a couple of games kind of.
The one game I picked up
about
the one game I picked up over actually it was after the holidays, but with someone said, here, I this is money that you can only spend on buying yourself a board game. Was basically the gift. So I used that to buy Civilization New Dawn from Fantasy Flight, which I actually got to try back at Board Game Geek Convention in November. Okay. And it, I don't think I liked it as much as the original one they did, but it's a much lighter and faster game, so it's probably going to hit the table a lot more often. And I
so
did.
You managed to get it to the table, yeah.
Tonight we're going to bust it out. Actually, I got a game event I'm going to with plans to crack it out.
Cool. Is it all punched and everything? Are you ready to go then? Are you
No, we'll be doing the punching tonight.
Really?
Yep.
Do you kind of do that then? Do you kind of say, right, okay, if you're going to be bringing a game to the table, do you actually just let everybody punch it? Kind of get that new game smell, get the glue in it, get the glue up the nose and everything like that. Kind of.
I don't know. I'm not one of those types. The second I get home with a new game, I immediately take off the shrink and open it and punch everything. That can wait till I actually play it.
Is it really? I suppose you were going to say.
Yeah. Ironically, sort of tangential to that. Ironically, I never sleeve any of my games. It was the only time I ever use card sleeves is in prototypes, and of course now designing games that you have to use card sleeves. So I've always thought that was funny.
It's a strange irony. You don't do things like pick cards with your teeth and stuff.
No, it's ironic. It's ironic that I don't sleeve my games as the person who created the card crafting system that requires the use of card sleeves. That's the irony I'm highlighting here.
I don't know. I get kind of lost with irony memes after Alanis Morissette released an entire song that none of it was actually ironic. It was just, it was just a pain in the butt. There was nothing in that song that was actually ironic. A traffic jam when you're already late, that's not ironic. It's just the fact that it's annoying. He caught his flight and then he died the next day or something like that. That's a tragedy. That's not ironic. There's no irony there, Alanis. Get it sorted out, for goodness sake. Give her a dictionary. Anyway, so so today we learned from John's teaching us irony today. So thank you, John. But so Edge of Darkness. Let's talk about Edge of Darkness, because I'm interested, because Mystic Vale is it's, as I say, a stunning looking game, and there's a lot of love that goes around for Mystic Vale. So let's talk about Edge of Darkness. Tell me about the mechanics, how it works,
Sure.
Everything.
Sure. So the core of the game is the card crafting, but it works entirely differently than how Mystic Vale does. So the game plays out of a central deck of cards, which it's 2 to 4 players, and I actually have a solo variant that I've been working on. The game plays, but typically the normal game is 2 to 4 players. Everyone plays out of one central deck, so you're drawing your hand from and discarding to that one central deck. But some of the cards in that deck are owned by some players. Some of them are neutral. Basically, how it's the flow of the game is, there's a round in which everyone drafts a hand of cards from this central deck. Then there's a second round where everyone resolves the hand of cards they've drawn. And the key in that round is that every time you do that round, you get to pick a new advancement and slot it onto one of your cards. So you're not actually spending anything to get advancements, you just get one for free every turn. And the cards in the deck, this is what I always do. I always start with mechanics. But let me take a back step and explain the theme first. So I just dive straight into the mechanics.
It's okay. We can edit this.
Yeah.
We can edit this so we can chop and change. I'll take this whole chunk of audio you're about to say, and we'll put it in the front, and then we'll cut out the bit where you say, "Okay, I'm forgetting about the theme," and then you can just go on and say, "Okay," and we'll just start and go, "Okay, John, tell us the theme behind Edge of Darkness." Woo.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who we are in the game, we're guild masters. So each player represents the leader of a particularly powerful guild within a city of the realm. And this particular city that we're in is on the border of the evil realm. And it's a realm that's been cursed. It used to be part of the human realm, but now it's been cursed and is taken over by shades and creatures of the darkness, right? And now all those creatures of the darkness are attempting to infiltrate this city. And this city is a powerful trade city, military city, but it is now faced with this encroaching darkness. The guild masters are the leaders of the city. They control the politics, the economics, and the military of the city. And they're also responsible for defending the city against this sort of encroaching darkness, right? So the central deck of cards that everyone plays out of is, each card in the deck represents either a citizen or a patrician, a noble person of the city, who it's a particularly important person in the city. They have influence over the city, the Senate, etc. Some of those character cards that are in that central deck are aligned to particular guilds. So at the start of the game, everyone has 4 of those cards that have their allegiance to your guild, and then there's a bunch of neutral citizens and patricians, right? And then on your turn, when you have a hand of cards, so you'll have a hand of cards which will be some mix of citizens and patricians. On your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to be selecting a advancement from one of 10 different locations on the board. Each location on the board, it represents a location within this city. So there might be the Senate, there could be the watchtowers, there could be a university, right? So each of these locations represents some important place in the city. And they each come with a stack of identical advancements that represent a important person associated with that location. So for example, and the advancement is essentially a contact. So when I take one of those advancements, I then slot it onto one of the character cards in my hand. Meaning maybe I put the university professor slotted onto one of my citizens. That means that citizen now has a connection to the professor at the university. So they can connect with that professor to gain some benefit or influence over that location, right? So every turn you're going to get to take one of these connection advancements and put it onto one of the character cards in your hand. And of course you want your own citizens and patricians to be more well connected in the city. So you're always going to want to slot the advancements onto your own cards. Then you get to resolve all the cards in your hand, and they'll do different things, right? So that's the general flow of the game. You draw a hand of cards from a communal deck. You're going to pick an advancement from one of the 10 locations and slot it onto a card, and then you get to do all of the effects in your hand, and then you discard your hand, right? And the central deck, when it runs out, like a deck builder, will shuffle and then become the new draw deck, right? It'll shuffle the discard pile and becomes a new draw deck. So the central deck keeps cycling like a deck builder, but we're all drawing from and discarding to the same deck. When I draw a card that is aligned to someone else, so maybe it's one of your cards, I can use your card, but I have to pay you to use it. I have to pay for the privilege of using the connections that your citizen or patrician has, right? So if I want to use the connection your citizen has to the university professor, I have to pay him $1, right? And say, look, can you help me out with this connection here, right? And then the effect will do something for me, right? Moreover, when I discard my hand of cards that are aligned to other players will go to that player. So that player will get their own cards back. Basically, your cards only ever end up in the discard pile after you get to use them. If someone else draws them first, they go to you, and then they go to the discard pile. So again, what cards you own in the central deck really matters. So of course, an element of the game then is you can claim the allegiance of the neutral cards in the deck, so that more of these citizens and patricians become aligned to your guild, right? So there's other people end up drawing more of your cards and having to pay you more often for the effects. So
at the same time, can you then make can you hold on to other people's cards and decide you're not going to kind of discard them? So if I pick up, say, your cards, I can actually try and hold them in my hand so that you can't get your hands on them if I'm going through my discard thing. Is there a kind of a bit
no?
Of
So whether
aspect to it,
you can't hoard other people's cards. So whether you use the card or not use the card, you have to discard it. And if it's someone else's card, when you discard it, it goes to them. Right. So you can't hoard cards from other people. When you draw cards out of the central deck, you have some control over what you draw. You're not just randomly drawing cards off the top. So sometimes you want to snatch your own cards, right? So that you don't let other people get the privilege of using them. And sometimes you want to intentionally leave your own cards out there for other people to draw, so that they'll pay you for them. And there's some more meta strategies about trying to pace your cards out, right? So that you don't draw all of your cards at once. But that's strategy that once you've played the game will make sense and is just me blabbering if you haven't played the game. You're
not one to blabber as well.
So the way all of the mechanics mesh together comes down to the locations in the city that are being used. And this is actually modular. Every game, there's 10 locations that are used. But the game is going to have a lot more than that available to use. So depending on what your setup is, so the best analogy is Dominion, right? So in Dominion, you have 10 action cards, right? And every game you use a different set of 10 action cards, right? That's the best analogy. So basically in Edge of Darkness, you pick 10 locations. Each location comes with a specific stack of advancement cards, right, that represent the contact for that location. And then with those 10 that you have out there, you play the game, right? So what the type of locations will do, or some of them will give you money. Some of them are really straightforward. They just say, you get money. Some of them many of them will require the use of agents, which is most synonymous to sort of a worker placement type of mechanic. Basically, how it works is, and each location advancement combination interacts with agents potentially a little differently, and of course they all explain it on the cards. But so the action card or the advancement card might allow you to place agents at a particular location, and then that location will say, for every agent you have here, you get $1 at the start of the round, right? And agents, and you have a fixed number of agents, but there's an advancement that you can pick that allow you to train more agents, so now you can get more workers, so you can spread out to the locations in the city more. Did you have a question?
Okay. So yeah, I did. I was going to say, does that mean, did you bring the different locations in mind because of replayability then?
Oh,
or
yeah.
To mix around with the mechanics that were available? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I wanted to mix a lot of replayability into the game. So, imagine a game like a worker placement game where there's 10 different locations you could put workers down, and they'll all do something different. But every time you play the game, you can just swap those 10 out and use a different 10 locations, right? And all the mechanics sort of mesh.
Yeah.
But there's some key effects that will always be around, right? But different versions of them might be available. So, for example, there's always going to be a location in the game that allows you to train new agents, right? But there's different versions of locations that let you train agents. So there might be one that says, place an agent down the first time you use this effect, and then the second time you use the effect, take the agent back and train a new agent, right? There might be another one that you use in a different game that says, just pay a bunch of money and you train an agent, right? So depending on the set of advancements or set of locations you have out there, you might end up with a board that is really money tight, or a board that, you can get a lot of money and, and buy things with it, right? So depending on what you got out there, you have to really sort of approach your strategy very differently.
That's an interesting take for a worker, almost like a game that has worker place elements, because, as you say, you normally get like a fixed space, or there's a tendency for a legacy element where you're changing the board forever. But it's unusual to see some, because usually, take viticulture for instance. The spaces on the board are always the same. You're always placing your guys in the spaces in order to get your workers or plant your vines and everything like that. The only variation that you have in the game is the winter and the summer visitor cards, and they have the random effects on the game they have an effect on the mechanics and how you act in certain situations. But since what you're doing here is you're like saying, well, from the beginning, you could effectively play 3 games of Edge of Darkness and not have the same experience, and as you say, have a game where everybody's just rolling about in cash, so it becomes a case of who is able to build up the strength the quickest, through to everybody's like scrimping and saving. So it's a case, it comes down to doing the best with the actual resources that you're able to muster together. Yeah.
Yep, that's spot on. I mean, other games that come to mind that have sort of varying worker placements. Lords of Waterdeep, right, has your standard locations, but then over the course of the game, buildings are built that add new ones, right? There's other games where you might be able to purchase your own worker placement location during the game. Like Manhattan Project, right? There's a bunch of standard worker placement locations, but during the game you can buy your own, so you can specifically put your own guys on your locations. But yeah, like this one, right from the get-go, every game you've got a different mix of locations, and I mean, it's really designed such that any one set of 10 locations can be played many times. And there's different strategies in every setup, right? There's different paths to victory in every setup. There's not like, well, with this 10 locations, you have to figure out what the path to victory is. And once you figured it out, then you just do that path to victory every time, right? It's really, with this set of 10 locations, there's these 4 different paths to victory. And you could play this setup multiple times, and it'd be a different experience every time. And then if you want to, you can swap out a few locations and swap in others, and now you've changed it up.
Yeah, does that also then give you the opportunity to maybe create a slightly different theme kind of expansion for the game then, if you decided to go down that route further on?
Yeah, so what we want to do, we've got some expansion stuff that we're working on, and the idea is the one expansion I've been working on is set in a different part of the realm. So it's another city essentially, that is also under threat from this darkness, this encroaching darkness. But they have a different culture, and they're a city that trades with the original city, right? So you could use locations from each city, right? With the idea that these are cities that have a trade thing, so you could interact with both, with connections at both cities. And then the idea is, as we expand, we introduce new cities and and different cultures with a whole set of new types of effects.
Okay. See when you're putting a game together like this, and you're wanting people to be able to learn it, have you got kind of like set decks you're going to get people to try? It's like, if this is your first game, try these 10 locations, try this deck, try this one. Or do you try and just say, well, listen, you just dive in and do whatever you want to do, kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely recommended setups. I've got quite a few made already, and we're gonna be having more. The game we're still deciding how exactly we want to do it, but we'll probably have like a player handbook type of thing in the box that will list a bunch of recommended setups, as well as rules for creating random setups. And I've even come up with a list of, for your first game, play this setup. For your second game, swap out just these 2 different locations. So 8 of them are the same as your first game, but swap out 2, right? And then for your third game, make this adjustment, and for your fourth game, make this adjustment. And by the time you've played 4 games, you've seen a whole bunch of different locations, right? And you've been gradually introduced to the more complicated effects, right? Edge of Darkness it's a lot to intake when you first sit down to learn the rules. It's actually it's not a super complex game once you figure it out, but you have to, every time you sit down at the table, right, you have to be like, okay, what do these 10 effects do? And then I have to think about how they synergize and how I want to approach it. And a lot of a good strategy in Edge of Darkness is about planning mid and late game, even at the beginning of the game. So it's a lot to intake for a new player, so we sort of introduce them to the more simple effects that have a little bit more straightforward paths to victory. And then gradually introduce some more with recommended setups. And then there's rules for random setups, which I always enjoy doing, as because there's, with the number of locations I've got, I haven't personally played anywhere near the possible number of combinations that you could, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, I probably never will, right? So it's fun for me to just do a random setup, and then even, as someone who's played many times, try to explore and figure out how I want to approach this new setup. So the random setups have to have rules, because you can't just grab any random 10. There's a little too much. Like Dominion gets away with that because it's a gateway game. It's very simple, right? But this game would potentially break if you didn't have certain effects in the game. So, like I said, there's always going to be an effect that lets you train agents, right? But the way in which you train agents might be different, right? But you'll always be able to do it somehow. So the random setups have rules that sort of guide you in creating a setup that isn't super broken, right?
No, I've seen that. I've seen it. I mean, the idea of placing down, I guess, having a movable feast in terms of the kind of the worker placement spaces. I've seen it used in Dice Forge, where you have like the beginning part of the game where you can play in easy mode, and then you've got another completely different set of cards if you want to ramp up the difficulty, or you want to ramp up the mechanics that are kind of available. On the same at the same time, in terms of you getting the balance, I've seen like Dinosaur Island recently has a kind of like win conditions, and you have to have like, I think it's like 3 objectives, if I'm correct.
It has
win
yeah.
2 of the.
It has adjustable win
objectives,
conditions, right?
And it says, yeah, and you've got to like, but the thing it does say, it doesn't. What it says is, by the way, okay, if it's pretty clear that two of the effects completely contradict each other, then take one away and kind of remove it. So, I mean, if that's the complication with like 3 cards, I can imagine you'll have to kind of police what's going to happen with 10 cards, especially if it's a random game.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, if I let it be random, you could entirely random. You could end up with a setup where a number of key effects cost money, and then no effect gives you money, right? So that would clearly not be a game that would work well, right?
It sounds like real life.
Yep.
Yeah, everything's costing me something, and I'm not getting anything back. Yeah, that sounds Yep. That's what my bank manager would say.
Real life scenario,
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to Kickstarter with Edge of Darkness?
Edge of Darkness is going to be on Kickstarter. It is scheduled, and
okay.
I currently don't foresee it changing, but it is somewhat possible, I guess. Though I guess when you launch this podcast, it'll be like a week away. February 20th is when this will be up on Kickstarter, so the near future. And I don't expect that date to change, but that would be AEG's call if they decide to adjust it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's coming up,
and that's really close. That's really close.
Yeah.
That's not even 2 weeks. That's
3 weeks. Yeah.
It's 20 days.
20 days.
Yeah, something like that. Yep. That's kind of cool. Have you been part of the marketing side of things for and helping kind of getting the word out and stuff like that as well? Have you been, because it's your game, do you feel the need to kind of get in there and kind of get involved with the community more and make sure everybody knows about the campaign before it's launched?
It's not my responsibility, but I do get involved and I do want to be involved. Yeah. AEG is doing most of AEG is doing all of that, and I am dabbling in it when they ask me to or when I want to. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things we've not talked about is how much it's going to be. Is a price being set for like the base game? Is it going to have a kind of a deluxe version of Edge of Darkness? I mean, what's the kind of the situation with that?
Yeah, I think they're going to have 2 tiers. So your standard, where I don't think you don't get stretch goals or something like that, but you get all the regular content that you would get. And then the deluxe one that comes with hopefully a ton of stretch goals if we hit them. And I think the last I heard was that one would be $100 for the deluxe one, and I don't know what the other. I don't want to misinform people, so I don't know what the other one will be, but it'll be some amount less than that.
It'd be 78.37.
Yeah.
That's it. You heard it here. It's confirmed.
Right.
So if you see it more than that, it's John's fault. Is it? And I mean, you've got Edge of Darkness coming out. Is there anything else happening with Mystic Vale at the moment? Are you got any more expansions planned for that at all?
Yeah, we've got the next big thing for Mystic Vale coming out is what's being called the Conclave expansion. This is like a big box that is meant to be a storage box for everything. So if you currently have the base game plus all 3 expansions, you're going to be mostly out of space in the base game box. So this Conclave expansion, it has some content in it, and its main purpose though is to be a large storage box to be able to store everything you've gotten for the game so far, and then everything that will ever come out for the game is the idea. It's the same. It's sort of similar to what AEG did with their Smash Up Big Kiki box. But it does come come with one thing that I'm excited to actually get out there in the wild is in the big box is 2 additional decks, 2 additional starting decks. So you now have 6 of them.
Okay.
And rules and some a few components that are needed to play a different variant of the game, which plays faster than the other variant, or than the regular game.
Oh, okay.
But you basically play the same amount of game, but it doesn't take as long. If you're playing with more than 4 players. So the idea is you can now play the game 6 players, but the pacing of the game is just as fast, right? So.
And have you got a price for that as well then?
I don't actually know what the price of that one's going to be.
$78.37, everybody. $78.37. I don't know why you're coming up with this number. It seems such a random number to be charging people for a game, John. I mean,
well, that's what happens when you get your MSRP from podcasters.
Exactly. Oh dear, it better not be able to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, is it still good? Is it still good to kind of go back to Mystic Vale and kind of tinker with it and play around with it and play in the kind of the mechanics again?
Oh, I'm not sick of Mystic Vale. I've been working on a couple different standalone expansions where it's basically a full new set of cards that you could play just with this set. One of those is probably going to come out later this year, with the next one coming out as the 2019 release. So they want to go away a little bit from the smaller box expansions and start releasing standalone expansions, with the idea that you can mix it in with all the other content if you want to, or you can leave it separate as its own different experience of playing Mystic Vale. So I'm still enjoying a lot. There's I keep discovering new design space for this game, and it's fun.
Cool. So are you actually aiming to get the biggest board game box ever? Because, I mean, has Isaac Childress kind of set the bar with having... I mean, are we looking at a box eventually you can, like, live in kind of thing?
No, this is not going to be Gloomhaven or Twilight Imperium size. I don't...
It's going to be nice.
Actually, the Mystic Vale box that I saw is quite large. The new box. If you have bought everything for Mystic Vale up till now, you will have plenty of room left in that box for future stuff. It's quite large. It is not Gloomhaven large, though.
All right. Okay. Yeah. You can't fit a small toddler in it, then.
No. You can't hide infants inside.
Exactly. Imagine having that as a claim on a board game. Just, but there's been photographs on Facebook. It's like, that's all I saw. It's like, I got Gloomhaven delivered and here's my small child inside the Gloomhaven box. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it comes with real adventurers. They just have to grow up.
Actual size of minis.
Right.
Exactly. They never actually said they're leveling up.
Yeah. This is a real legacy game. No, this one's gonna take years.
Never said that, like, the leveling up system was like actually 35 years before you got your character up to full strength.
That's right. Lifetime replay value.
Yeah, I suppose if you don't mind your kids living with you until you're like whatever age.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing we mentioned earlier on was space base. So let's Edge of Darkness on the 20th. You can jump in the deluxe version for $100. You can jump in. Potentially, you can jump in the smaller level for $78.37, though that has to be confirmed. But But let's talk about Space Base. You mentioned this briefly, I think, back. You kind of hinted at some kind of dice based game that you were kind of working on when we chatted back in October, and that's now coming. That is now going to be coming into, I guess, in a campaign kind of near you. So, what is Space Base going to be all about?
Yeah, so Space Base is the polar opposite of Edge of Darkness. So Edge of Darkness is a big, medium weight Euro complex game, and Space Base is a dice chucking light gateway game. So Space Base is I expect the immediate comparison people will give to Space Base is to Machikoro. It has this, just like Machikoro, it's got that, on your turn you roll dice, and then depending on what you roll, you and potentially other people will get stuff, right? So Settlers, I think, was the first game to use that mechanic that I'm aware of, right? Machikoro implemented it in a really, really streamlined, super accessible game, right, where it's just cards and dice, right? So Space Base is like a couple steps up from Machikoro on the complexity scale. It gives you more control. If you want to be the guy who has more control over your dice, it gives you more control over your outcome.
Yeah.
So it's at its core, it's like an engine builder, right? Every card every player has a board with starting cards numbered 1 through 12. And you lay these cards out on your board from 1 to 12. And every card gives you some benefit that you get when you roll the dice, right? So if I and a core distinction is when I roll my dice, I can either get both individual values. So if I roll a 4 and a 2, I could take the benefit of my 4 card and my 2 card. Or I could take the sum of the dice and get the benefit of my 6 card. Right?
All right, okay.
So every time I roll, I make that decision. Which 2 or 1 effect do I want, right? So the power scale of the cards on your board are 1 through 6 are all very weak effects, but they're really easy to roll, right? And then 7 through 12 scale in power, because obviously from 7 to 12 it gets increasingly more difficult to roll them, right? But starting at 7, you need 2 dice, right? So the jump from 6 to 7 is huge in probability of hitting it. So is the jump in the benefit you get if you roll it. So you have this board. On your turn, you roll your dice. You pick whether you either want to take the sum of the dice or the individual dice, and then you get the rewards, right? The rewards pile up in terms of credits. Credits are used to purchase new cards. When you buy a new card, like Mystic Vale, there's 3 tableaus of weak and cheap cards scaling up to expensive and powerful cards, right? And on your turn, you get to buy one of these. And when you buy one, it's going to replace a card on your board. So every card that you buy is going to say, put this in position number 8 or number 2 or number 1 or number 12, right?
All right. Okay.
So if I buy a card that's for position number 8, it replaces my current 8 card. And my current 8 card flips around, revealing a new effect, and it tucks under my player board. So just that new effect goes up to the top. And the new card I bought then replaces it on my player board. So as I buy new cards, every effect that gets replaced gets flipped up atop of my board and has a new sort of smaller, weaker effect. The smaller, weaker effects that build up on top of your board, you score those on opponents' rolls, but not on your own rolls. So you always get stuff on your own. So you always get stuff on your own rolls. Doesn't matter what you roll, you will hit either the sum or 2 individual things on your own board, right? And then what you buy starts creating a set of effects that trigger off opponents' rolls, right? And then some key distinctions are some cards give you control over the dice. So for example, one effect one of the mechanics in the game is what's called charging up abilities. So an effect might say, when you roll a 4, place a charge counter on this card, right? So if I roll a 4, I get to put a charge counter on my 4 card, right? And then the card says, whenever you want to, you can spend a charge counter to take 1 higher than whatever the dice were, right? So later in the game, maybe I have a bunch of really good effects in my 10 slot, right? And someone else rolls a 10, and someone else rolls a 9, right? I can spend a charge that I've charged up on my 4 card to turn that 9 into a 10, and I get my 10 effects. It only affects me. I don't turn it into a 10 for everybody. So a lot of what you're building into your board is you're attempting to build in how are you going to get your payoff, and then build in effects and combinations that will allow you to get that payoff more likely or more often, right? Or if you want to be the guy who just goes crazy luck, you just can buy a bunch of cards, like big expensive cards with big payoffs, and nothing that gives you better odds of hitting them, and then you just hope you hit them, right? So if you want to be the luck guy who just hopes for the big hit, right? Or you can control your luck by building in ways of guaranteeing or having a much better chance of hitting the type of the point scoring cards that you want. The game plays 2 to 5 players. It plays 2 to 5 players. Okay. The length of the game scales with the players, but even at 5 players, it doesn't play more than an hour. It plays usually 45 minutes with 45 minutes to 50 minutes or so with 5 players, and less with fewer players.
Has it been difficult to? I mean, you said gateway, and I was like, John Clair said, John said gateway game, and I was just thinking, the gateway game. Is it difficult to, when you're working on something, when you're used to kind of like complex games that you've put together, like Mystic Vale and Downfall and Edge of Darkness? Did you find yourself kind of holding back and thinking, well, I could add this mechanic, but it's going to maybe complicate things a little bit more?
Yes, that happens. That happens in almost every game design. There's always like, this sounds cool, but right. Space Base, my goal was to make a game that you can teach, as you just start playing the game. So, I mean, the game essentially, usually when I teach it, we just start. I go first. I sort of explain everything I do on my turn. Like, okay, I'm going to roll the dice. Now I'm going to make a choice. I either do this. Then I'm going to buy this, which replaces that. All right, now it's your turn. And I just sort of explain what happens as we do our first round of the game. And by the time we've done 1 or 2 rounds, everybody knows how to play, right? And that was sort of my goal, was to make this a game that you just sit down and you start playing, and after a couple rounds, everybody knows how to play. So I did have to hold back adding in additional mechanics that I thought might be cool.
Was it fun to kind of put together a game of this type where you were able to get, I guess, the core design done quite quickly? Has it made you think, are there other maybe lighter, quicker games that you could maybe be concentrating on as well to kind of, I guess, increase your portfolio and things like that?
Oh, for sure. There was a period last year where I was working on a few too many big, complicated games, which I think I've learned that I need to be working on a range of games at any one time. So, working on maybe 1 or 2 light games, 1 or 2 medium games, and no more than like 1 heavy, complex game at a time, right? There's only so much space in my brain for keeping track of everything, right? So, Also, the amount of time it takes to take a design from concept to finish is obviously much shorter the lighter the game is.
I mean, when we spoke last time, we obviously we spoke. You were playing. You were talking about kind of Downfall, and with the way the campaign kind of worked. I mean, you mentioned you've got the expansion for Mystic Vale, you've got Edge of Darkness, you've now got Space Base. Are you looking at? Is it going to be another big game from yourself, or are you kind of thinking, well, the middle-sized games are maybe a little bit easier to kind of put together, or are you just kind of going to do kind of a mixture of kind of everything?
It depends on what the design goal is, what I'm inspired to be working on. Yeah, I'm not locking myself into a category. I'm probably not going to tackle something as complex as Downfall on a regular basis. Of course, I've got
Yeah.
like 5 ideas for games that would be that complicated that sound like a lot of fun to work on. But
Yeah.
I kind of have to pick one at a time, or even less than one at a time if there's a lot of other stuff going on also. But I'm not gonna say,
Okay.
I'm gonna stop working on light games or stop working on complex games. It's gonna be a balancing act of how much time I have and where other projects I'm currently working on are at.
And have you got a whole plethora of other projects? Of course you have. You constantly have a plethora of projects, but I mean, have you got a lot more planned for the rest of the year, or are you just going to be concentrating on Edge of Darkness and Space Base for this year, and then other things kind of into 2019?
So I'm actually hoping to be done, needing to continue doing design work on Edge of Darkness within. I'm mostly done the design on it actually. In turn, the core design is done, and I might still do some tweaks to specific location effects, but the design is essentially done,
Yeah.
and I hope to move off of that for the rest of this year. Space Base, depending on how well it does, I may end up spending some time doing an expansion for it, but
Yeah.
outside of that, that one should be pretty much done. The other games I'm working on right now are one of them is there's a few too many games I'm working on right now, but the big ones the big ones on the top of my priority right now are, one of them is another card crafting game. It's probably in the same weight class as Edge of Darkness, so it's a little on the heavier end.
Yeah.
It's a high seas pirate game where every card represents one of your crew, and your crew are going to gain new skills and new items, and the crew drive your actions that you get to do with your ship on the board. And it's got some elements of area control, some piratey battles, but at its core, it's a engine building economic game, right? Because you're sort of building your crew into a really efficient, powerful crew, while fighting for other players for control of islands out in the sea, and fighting pirates or being a pirate. That's one game I'm working on. The other game I'm working on would be a really big box game, but not a complex game, because of the components. Currently, it's called Gunslinger. That name's going to probably have to change, but my prototype is called Gunslinger, and this one is the weirdest design I've ever worked on. It's probably my most it's probably my most unique game experience that I've designed, and maybe one of the most unique game experiences that I've ever played. It's a tactical minis game, an area control tactical minis game where you play. There's a bunch of different scenarios, and you're battling over trying to achieve certain scenarios. Sometimes one player is the attacker, other people are on defense. Sometimes it's symmetrical, where you both have the same objective and you're just fighting over it, right? And we're hoping to have really cool miniatures in it. But all of the combat in the game is driven by the use of a cube gun. It's a toy gun that shoots cubes. So you play in an arena, essentially, and the game would come with walls, so you don't shoot off the table all the time. And it would come with terrain, and in this case, terrain isn't like modifying dice. It actually matters, right? You want to hide your guys behind terrain because it makes them harder to shoot, right? So you're moving your guys behind terrain to take cover. You can build terrain. You can build fortresses, which allows you to place essentially like Jenga blocks down on the table to cover your guys. sometimes you might need to charge across a bridge, which puts you in really easy shot for your opponent, but you need to get across it, right? And the whole game is very simple in its movements and its mechanisms, and it's all about and how you essentially achieve. You can win the game being a terrible shot if you have good strategy. You make your moves at the right time. You pick your shots. You don't go for tough shots. You make sure you hit the shots you can. The idea is that the gun is accurate enough that you don't have to be a great shot to hit. Right? If you want to hit something close that's easy, you can hit the thing that's close that's easy. Right? If you want to be the guy who's a super good sniper and hits the hard shot, go for it. Right? So it's a very tactical experience, but just uproariously funny and crazy because just things happen in this game that don't happen in other games, right? There might be a fortress and you've been hiding in it's a tower, right? And your guys are at the top and they have a gun at the top.
Yeah.
And they've been using it really powerfully, but somebody finally shoots the leg off the tower and the whole thing collapses and crunches like 5 guys beneath it, right? And they're all dead, right? When you shoot a guy over or knock a guy over, he's dead, right? Just stuff like that happens in this game that's just awesome.
But where'd you get the idea for that, though? I mean, where'd you go from? Because you always strike me as somebody that likes the kind of the more complicated, kind of reasonably decent mechanics. You need a bit of a head about you. And it sounds to me that now what you're doing is you're going around kind of chucking cubes and knocking stuff over, and it sounds like there's going to be noises and laughter and people potentially chucking, making a mess of the place and...
It's I don't think I have it as a designer. I don't think I have a type. My first game I ever published was a real-time like Twitch hand speed battle card game. That was really kind of designed for kids. That was the first game I published. The second game I published was Mystic Vale, which is sort of a lighter end Spectrum card game. Then I did a trick-taking game, which was Custom Heroes. Right. Then I've got a medium heavyweight-ish Euro game in Edge of Darkness. I've got Downfall, which is a 4X game. And then my next one will quite possibly be Gunslinger, which is a dexterity tactical miniatures game. I'm all over the map.
I'll take that back and edit it so I don't look like an idiot.
I'm all over the map. Well, no, I mean, to be fair, the 2 games you and I have spoke the most about are Downfall and Edge of Darkness, which are probably my most 2 complicated games, right? But I'm all over the map. Oh, and I skipped Space Base, right, which is a light dice game. So
you did, yeah. So you need to. I don't know what else you need to do. I mean, you maybe need to do a light party game.
Yeah, I need to do a party game or a social deduction game or something, right?
Yeah, something like that. You could just make one up. I don't know. I will leave it up to you. No doubt I'll talk to you in 6 months and you'll have that done. It's like, oh yeah, I went away and we did something involving kind of rabbits and hutches and stuff like that, and it was all fine,
I haven't started working on Squirrel Valley yet, which was your idea from last time.
I was gonna ask you. I can't believe it. You actually wrote that down. I'm actually in shock. Because I was going to say, well, at least as long as you're not working on Squirrel Valley. But then you actually have obviously said you are.
I haven't started yet.
Well, we need to... I haven't started it yet. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked, Mr. Clair. I'm shocked. If I had a leather glove, I'd be slapping it across your face a bit and saying, "This is a duel, sir. I shall see you outside with muskets."
Yeah. My sister has this. My sister has this idea for a game using owls that are hunting mice, and I was like, "Oh, this kind of sounds like Squirrel Valley. Maybe."
Oh.
She keeps telling me that her idea is the one I should work on next, right?
Well, we'll see what happens, because obviously Squirrel Valley might all of a sudden turn up in Kickstarter, and then what are you going to do?
Oh, man. Would have missed my chance.
Fight exactly. Yeah. You're just going to watch it and say, yay, well, at least he made $50 in the Kickstarter. He didn't fund. And everybody was laughing at him. Did I ask you for a price for Space Base? Do you have even an idea of how much it's going to be?
I think Space Base is... I don't want to say. I don't think it's going to be...
$78.37.
It's probably going to be like $35, $39, I think.
All right, okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That'll be good. And do you know when it's going to be out on Kickstarter as well? Have you been given a rough idea, a month and stuff like that as well?
Space Base is straight to retail. AEG's doing it. But they're not going to. They're not kickstarting this one. This one's going straight to retail. It should be available in April, unless there's any delays.
That's cool. Is that does that kind of take the pressure off then? I mean, you know that it's just going to be going out there in the wild. You just like, well, that's cool. That's going to be there. People are going to be, it's going to be ordered. It's going to be out there. People are going to be able to pick it up.
Oh, it's
be
much
like a different type of kind of mark.
Yeah, straight to retail is much simpler.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons and things that make sense to do Kickstarter for a big, complicated game like Edge of Darkness or Downfall. But for a smaller game like Space Base, it's kind of nice that it just goes straight to retail. There's a little less hassle there.
Cool. Okay. Well, if people have listened along tonight and they want to keep an eye on what's going to be happening, obviously we will make sure that we post the links for in the show notes for Edge of Darkness, so that people will have that for the campaign when that's starting running. But if people want to keep an eye on yourself on the internet, where can they find you?
Best place would probably be Twitter. It's just John D Clair is my handle. And the next best place would be probably AEG's Twitter or Facebook page, since they're doing most of my games these days. Okay,
cool. Okay, excellent. Well, what I'll do is, as I say, we'll make sure that we take all the notes and we'll put them in the show notes so that we have got some notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on us and what we're up to and where we're going, just go to Google, put We're Not Wizards in, and you will find us. We're on Twitter and Facebook, and we're on Stitcher, and we're on Acast, and we're on Spreaker, and we're on YouTube, and we're currently trying to get on Spotify, but we think they've listened to a couple of episodes and decided that we're maybe far too Scottish for them to be on or something like that. But you can find us on Apple Podcasts, and as we say, if you like what you've listened to, please give us a subscription, give us a rating, or at least give us a review if you really like us. If you are going to give us a review, remember, and don't give us 10 stars because that makes us big-headed. But don't give us 0 stars or 1 stars because that makes us cry. Give us a 5 because it's in the middle and it's average. And we're a little bit average. But the person who's not been average tonight he's officially a repeat offender. That's what you would call him. It's the wonderful, the fantastic Mr. John D. Clair. So thank you again very much for coming on, John.
Thanks so much for having me and listening to me blabber about my games for a second time.
I'd have you on a third time as soon as you Space Bases. Next game, when Gunslinger's coming out, you've got an open invitation. Just come on. We'll have a chat.
Gunslinger's a fun one. I would love to talk about that game more.
It's good. Absolute brilliant. There's only a couple more things left to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, John?
According to you, not. So I take it from the expert.
Watch it or the squirrel gets it.
Yeah. Squirrels aren't wizards either.
No, they're nutcrackers. And the next thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from John D. Clair. Say goodbye, John.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s. If you see a shadow behind you, make sure you don't turn around because maybe it's not just a lack of light. Maybe you're potentially in the edge of darkness. So keep an eye on the later in this month. As I say, we'll have some show notes there so you can keep a track on the campaign because it looks extremely interesting indeed. But until the next time, goodbye.